Well, hello everybody and welcome to Jeff's Baking Blog. Today I'm going to make a peach tarte tatin. Now, tarte tatin can be made with other fruits. Usually it's made with apples, but it can be made with other fruits, and it can also be made with savoury things such as goat's cheese and figs and tomatoes and things like that. And often these days a sheet of ready bought puff pastry is used to go on top of the fruit before it's baked in the oven. But I think more traditionally it's a shortcrust pastry which is used. Now, you can buy shop bought shortcrust pastry and that would work fine, and you can use puff pastry, but I'm going to make my own shortcrust pastry and put that on the top. It's going to be nice and buttery. So it's not a difficult recipe, particularly if you use the shop bought pastry. And I ought to explain that a tarte tatin is started off in a skillet or a frying pan, and the fruit is caramelised in sugar and butter like that. Then the puff pastry or the shortcrust pastry is placed on the top and it's put into the oven and baked, and then it's turned out onto a plate so that the pastry is underneath and the fruit is on the top, and that's what a tarte tatin is. So I'll go on to the ingredients, and for this I have the pastry, which is these ingredients, and then the fruit, which is these ingredients. And for the pastry I have 225 grams, which is 1.5 cups based on scooping packed flour into a 250 milliliter cup of plain flour. I have 25 grams, 2 tablespoons of caster sugar, 120 grams, 8.5 tablespoons of cold unsalted butter, which I've cut into cubes, 1 medium egg, beaten with 2 teaspoons of water, and that would be 1 large egg in the USA, and a pinch of salt. And for the fruit to go on the top, or underneath so to speak, I have 900 grams or thereabouts, 2 pounds of peaches, which I have peeled and quartered, and I'll explain a bit about that in a moment. And I have more than that here, but that's what I'll need. I have 100 grams, half a cup of sugar, 1.5 grams, a quarter of a teaspoon of salt, and 42 grams, 3 tablespoons of softened unsalted butter. So the first thing to do is to make the pastry, but before I do that, let me speak a little bit more about the peaches. So I'll just explain what I did for my peaches. And I took the peaches and I cut a slit across into the top of them, and I immersed them in boiling water for 15 seconds. Then I took them out, and that should be sufficient to allow me to peel away the skin quite easily. Of course, this is now gone cold since I did that, but the skin peels away quite easily, as you can see. And then with the skin off, you can quarter it, and there's various methods that people talk about. The way I like to do it, and which I have found the easiest, is to again take my cross on the top and I just run a knife around it on one side, do the same in the other direction, and then the other part of the cross, do the same again. So now I've cut through, and if I pull that, it comes off into a quarter like that. And that's good enough. So that's the easiest way I have found to do it. Other people may have an easier way. So we'll go on to make the pastry after I've washed my hands. And to make the pastry, I'm going to put my flour into the processor bowl of my immersion blender, add the sugar and the salt, just shake that about just a little bit. Then I'll put my cold butter in, and I'm going to process that until the mixture resembles a sort of coarse breadcrumb like texture. And that's taken very little time, and it's quite good enough. So then I'm going to add in about half of my egg and water mixture, and I'll start to process it, and I'm going to process it, adding a little bit more as I need it, until the mixture clumps into a dough. And I want it into a soft dough, but I don't want it sticky. So I just add a little bit more of the egg and water mixture. And I can see that that's come together quite nicely. So I'm going to tip that out onto some plastic wrap. I'll just scrape my bowl. I'm just going to knead that a little bit together, just so that I get any slightly stickier bits mixed in with the rest of the soft dough, like that. Then I'll press it down into a disc. And I'm going to chill that. I wrap it and chill it for 30 minutes. You can chill it for longer, but 30 minutes will be long enough. And I'll come back in 30 minutes and we'll roll it out, because I want to get that rolled out and chilled again as we work with the peaches to get those ready to be topped. So I've chilled my pastry for about 30 minutes. I'm going to roll it out, and I'm going to use for my tart a 10-inch frying pan. So I'm going to roll this out larger than 10 inches so that I can lay the pastry onto the fruit and then tuck it in the sides. And that's rolled out, and I've actually cut that out, and I'm going to roll that up carefully onto my rolling pin, And then I'm going to put that onto some silicone mats, which I can then put into the fridge for it to chill again. So that's good like that. And I'm at this stage I'm just going to cut across in the centre like that, and I'm going to put that into the fridge, and I'm going to chill it until it's really quite firm, and as it becomes firm I'm going to preheat my oven to 200 degrees Celsius, 180 Celsius with a fan, 400 Fahrenheit, and then as I'm doing that I will come back and we will start to cook the sugar with the butter and the peaches, ready for the pastry to go on top. So my pastry is chilling. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put my butter into my 10-inch pan, and I'm going to smear it all over the pan. Just like that. And then I'm going to put the sugar in as well. So I'll sprinkle the sugar over. And the salt. And I'll just give that a bit of a shake. And that's good enough. So then I'm going to take my quarters of peach and I'm going to lay them around the edge in a circle, quite tightly placed together, and then I'll put some more in the centre, like that, and I'm going to put those onto a high heat, and I'm going to cook them so that the butter melts and the sugar dissolves and begins to caramelise as the peach releases the juices, and we have a nice sort of sweet nectar which turns a little bit amber in colour in all probability. So I'll show you that as they're cooking. And as you can see, that's cooking now, and I'm going to leave it just like that for 10 minutes, 12 minutes, until the juices have released quite a bit and the colour of the liquid has changed. By that time my oven will be preheated and I'll be ready to place the pastry on the top. So I've taken my peaches off the heat, and as you can see that liquid has been released and it's changed colour. So I'm going to try to put this pastry over the top like that, and I'm going to press it down around the sides without burning my fingers. like that, and I'm going to put that into the oven, and I'm going to bake it for about 30 minutes or so until the top turns a nice brown colour. Now you could brush the top with some milk or some water, and you could sprinkle sugar over it, but since it's going to become the bottom of the pie, I don't think it's worth it. So I'll bake this for 30 to 35 minutes until the top colours and the pastry is cooked. Then I'll take it out of the oven and I'll come back and show you what it looks like and what we're going to do next. So here is my tart out of the oven, and one thing I ought to mention is that without thinking I was using a pan which had a plastic handle, and I realised at the last minute, so I actually wrapped that handle. I think it was oven safe already, but I wrapped it in 2 layers of aluminium foil just to protect it, and that seemed to work quite well. It's still hot now because it's been out of the oven about 15 minutes. But there's still quite a bit of juice. Peaches release quite a lot of juice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to drain some of that off before I tip this out. So I'm going to put a plate over the top of the pan, and I'm going to try to hold that plate in place and tip it up and see if any juice comes out. And actually there's not very much, so I've actually reduced mine down quite sufficiently, so that's okay. So I'm going to tip the tart out, and hopefully it will come out. If any pieces get stuck, then I can always replace them. Some have got stuck there, or they've actually slid over, so I can reassemble those. And that's good like that. And I'm going to leave that to cool down for another 10 or 15 minutes before I actually cut it, and we'll have a taste. So I've left my tart for about 20 minutes and I've now cut a slice out. So I'll show you what it looks like. So it's still nice and juicy. Now, as I mentioned, if there's too much juice, you can drain that off and then put that back into the pan and reduce it, and then just drizzle it over the top or something. But mine's fine as it is. So I'll have a taste of the piece which I've cut. Nice and sweet, and it's a sort of a caramelly flavour to the juice. And the pastry is still quite firm underneath as well. That would be ideal served with some ice cream. It's perfect as it is, but with ice cream would be lovely. So that's going to be it for this recipe. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have, please give me the thumbs up below and click to subscribe to my YouTube channel. In the top right hand corner of the screen there'll be an eye that you can click on, and that will take you to a link for the recipe, and I'll put a link below the video as well. And I'll be back with another recipe in the very near future. So until then, happy baking.